ka panganoron. Before we start our discussion, let's pray first. Okay, Miss Ella, please lead the prayer. Okay, please sit down. Before ko mo proceed sa ako ang discussion, mag-energizer sa tao na. Nakaibaw mo itong kaning energizer nga katong remix nga katong Five little monkey, Humpty Dumpty. So kanto man itong kantahon, energizer ato. Pero depende niyo kung gusto ninyo mo action or kanta kay wala maigingon ana nga kung magig action ba nga na. So, go na ta? Go na, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Five little monkey, Humpty Dumpty. Mama called the doctor and the doctor said, pagbilang ko tatlo, makatago na kayo. Kayo pong nakaupo, subukan niyang tumayo. I wanna be a toto, be a twinkle star. How they got a body but hoten. Meow. Yay! Okay, let's start. Who among you here can remember what are the previous topic that we discussed before katong pagkuan ang last karon nga ni discuss kinsay nakahinumdom og unsa nga topic to. Okay, Miss Palingkod. Okay, Miss Palingkod. Thank you, Miss Palingkod. It's about the what? It's about the constructive feedbacking. So, the constructive feedbacking daw is kanang hatag o comments that are meant to help a person to improve by being positive, clear, and supportive. Monay, constructive feedbacking. Now, let's proceed to my topic. It's about the self-assessment and peer assessment. Okay. Nudlo ko kinsa. Balik tani. Okay. Ano lang. Miss Butron. For you, what is self-assessment? Thank you. Thank you, Miss Butron. Okay, give Miss Butron a tiger clap. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Roar. Okay. Ang self-assessment daw is kanang ikaw mo evaluate sa imong self, imong aglimon nga performance, strength and weaknesses. Sa simple nga mga pagka-istorya is kanang ikaw mismo nga mo check sa imong work ug sa imong mga reflect kung unsay maayo nimo, unsay dapat nimo i-improve. Mao nay self-assessment. Example is kanang after kanang human sa imong activity. Ikaw mismo nagtan-aw balik sa imong answer. Imong i-rate kung pila ka percent ang imong nasabtan. Mo nay imong nasabtan ba sa imong assessment. The example is kanang nag-report kintay ko. Nag-report before ko mag-report, ako ang gi-record, ako ang kagalingon sa pag-speaking. Mo nang nakita nako nga dali kayo ko musulti. So ako ang gipraktisan nako nga ako ang hinahinayan para masabtan sa uban. Mo nay self-assessment. So muna ang self-assessment makatabang sa atong kagalingon nga makapamaayo ug unsa atong kayog asa ta ana nga kanang pero tang maluya muna siya ang self-assessment. Peer assessment, ikaw basay what is unsay imong pasabot anang peer assessment? Thank you, Mr. Basay. Ang peer assessment daw is kanang hintay na kay ka group or imong family maingana imong hintay imong classmate ang mo evaluate sa imong work, dili para i-judge ka pero para tabangan ka. Mo nay peer assessment. Pareha ng kuan na mo'y group nga kanang group activity, presentation or reportings ingana. So imong classmate ikaw kung ni report o niya imong classmate niingon og nindot imong pag-present sa tunga pero dapat naapay mo improve gamay kanang mo speak kag louder para madunggan sa ato ang mga classmate. Mao nay peer assessment. Na ang peer assessment. Peer assessment is to teach us to give feedback kindly and help each other to grow. Muna ay peer assessment. So let's move into the objective. The first is define self-assessment and peer assessment. Second is identify their importance in learning. Third is evaluate one's own work using self-assessment. Fourth is give simple and constructive feedback to classmates. Fifth is improve performance based on feedback and reflection. I only read this. Self-assessment is assessment which allows students to assess their own performance. It can be extremely valuable in helping students develop reflection, critique, and judgment, and ultimately students learn how to be responsible for their own learning. Self-assessment are more often used as part of a formative assessment process rather than a summative one. So, unsa ra ganito si self-assessment? Self-assessment is ikaw mismo ang mo evaluate sa imuhang kaugalingon sa imuhang mga strength o sa imuhang mga weaknesses. So, here are the steps to conduct self-assessment. First is identify the purpose. Before starting the self-assessment process, it is important to identify purpose of the assessment. This could be related to academic performance, career development, personal growth, or any other area of interest. Meaning, identify the purpose is kanang understand why you are doing the self-assessment and what you want to achieve. This is crucial because it guides the focus of the assessment and ensure that the process is meaningful. Without clear purpose, you might end up reflecting on irrelevant areas or missing important insight. For example, isa ka student sa high school, gusto mo improve sa iyang grades. Kung klaro ang purpose, makafocus siya sa weak subjects sama sa math and science. I-review niya ang past tests, assignments o feedback sa teachers. Makita niya nga maayo siya sa memorization pero lisod sa problem solving. Tungod ani makaplano siya sa mag-practice more on sa problem solving. Kana more on problem solving exercises kaysa sa mag-study lang sa mga random lang ba nga na. Second is collect data. Collect data is relevant to the area of assessment. This could include feedback from others, performance evaluation, test scores, or other relevant data points. It is important to ensure that the data collected is accurate and reliable. Collecting data involves gathering information about your performance, behavior, or skills. This ensures that your self-assessment is based on evidence rather than assumption. Collecting data involves gathering information about your performance, behavior, or skills. This ensures that your self-assessment is based on evidence rather than assumption. Data include test results, feedback from teachers or peers, personal notes, journals, or observation. Example is, isa ka teacher, gusto mo improve sa classroom engagement. Para makuha ang data, i-review niya ang lesson plans, students participation, attendance, ug mangayo og feedback sa students kung unsa nga teaching methods ang pinaka-effective niya nga buhaton. Muna, makita niya nga mas effective ang students sa group activity kaysa sa lectures. Mao ni ang clear nga evidence para ma-improve ang teaching nga mga strategies sa teacher. Third is reflect. Reflect on the data collected and consider the implication for personal growth and development. Consider strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. Reflect is, once you have collected the data, the next step is to reflect on what it tells you. Reflection involves thinking deeply about your strengths, weaknesses, patterns, and areas that need to improvements. It requires honesty and careful consideration of your experiences. For example, maka-ask himself of what did I do well or what did I struggle and why. Reflection allows you to understand and not only what happened but also the reason behind your performance. helping you gain insight that you are crucial for personal and professional growth. Another example is student. Ang student nga nag-reflect sa iyang grades, makita nga maayo siya sa story pero low siya sa math. Nakapunta siya sa iyang kagalingon. Ngano maayo ko sa history o ngano lisod ko sa math. Muna, makita niya nga mas daghan oras sa history study, mag-study siya sa history kaysa sa math. Ang inyang insight niya is kinahanglan maayo ang time management o sa study habits mo na niyang gusto nga mo na yang dapat na buhaton. The fourth is identify goals. Based on the reflections, identify specific goals for personal and professional development. These goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bounded, or SMART. And the fifth is be honest. Since you are assessing yourself, you should be honest and refrain from making wrong and judgment. So, ang kinahanglan is be honest ta. Kini ang sa pinaka-importanting step kay ang tinuod nga reflection o evaluation dili mahimo kung dili ka matinuoron sa imong kagalingon. Nakoy pangutana, ikaw ba kay honest ka ba sa imong mga gibuhat or sa imong kagalingon karon? Kung honest ka, may nagpasabot niya, good kay honest ka nga pagkatao. Pag honest nagpasabot niya, i-recognize nimo ang imong strength, weaknesses, ug areas nga kinahanglan pa nimo i-improve. Bisan unsa pa ka challenging o kanang uncomfortable tan-awon. Kung dili ka honest, basin ma-overestimated nimo imong abilidad o ma-deny ang areas nga nagkinahanglang improvement. Resulta, bisan human sa self-assessment, dili ka makabuhat og effective action plan. Honesty, makatabang pud sa pag-set o realistic goals ug sa pag-develop og practical strategies para sa growth. Ang honesty, dili lang limitado sa academic performance. Pwede pud na sa behavioral skills, personal habits o professional development. Kinahanglan ka nga aware sa imong tinuod nga standing og sa mga maka-acknowledge sa mga challenges o sa imong success. Developing an action plan is a critical step in assessment because it serves as the bridge between your goals and the actual action needed to achieve them. A clear, practical, and structured action plan provides focused, measurable steps and a roadmap for improvement. Consistently implementing your plan allows you to track progress and achieve meaningful growth in academic, professional, or personal areas. Ang development and action plan, usa ka importante kayo nga step sa self-assessment kay kini ang tulay gikan sa imong goals ngadto sa imong aktual nga buhaton pa sa imong achieve ang imong objectives. Ang klarong practical o structured nga action plan naghatag og focus, measurable steps o roadmap para sa imong improvement. Kung consistent imong implemented ang plan, mas dali nimo makita ang progress ug ma-achieve nimo ang meaningful growth sa imong academic, professional o kanang imong professional nga mga aspect. So these steps means creating a clear and concrete plan of an action how you will achieve your goals. An action plan serves as a roadmap that connects your reflection and goals to actual step you need to take. Without an action plan, it can be difficult to follow through on your goals and you may get stuck in planning without seeing in real progress. A good action plan should be specific, detailed, and practical so it's easy to follow. It is also important that to consider the resources, time, and support system you need to accomplish your goals. You can organize your plan into step-by-step action, daily or weekly tasks, depending on the type of goal you have. Student academic. A school student wants to improve their math grade from 70 to 85%. Their action plans could be include allocate 1 hour daily for math practice. Solve 10 problem sets every day and check answers. Join a weekly study group and understand difficult topics. Ask the teacher for clarification on challenging lesson and monitor progress weekly using a journal or checklist. So this plan is specific, practical, and measurable, allowing the students to clearly track improvement. And lastly, evaluate progress. Regularly evaluate progress toward identified goals and adjust the action plan as needed. This could include seeking feedback from others, tracking progress toward specific milestone, or modifying the action plan based on new information. This means looking at you have accomplished, what goal have you been achieved, and what areas still need improvement. Evaluation is important because it allows you to determine whether your action plan and goals are effective. Without evaluating progress, it is difficult to how whether you are improving or if your strategies need adjustment. It is important to monitor your progress regularly. You can use tools such as journal, checklist reports, feedback from teacher or peers, and personal reflection notes. These tips gives a clear picture of your achievements and what still need to be worked on, ensuring that your self-assessment is meaningful and productive. So example is a college student. A college student wants to raise their math from grade 70 to 85%. After 1 month of studying, they check their quiz scores and see they went from 70 to 78. They realize they still make mistake in word problems. They decide to spend extra 30 minutes daily practice word problem and ask their professor for guidance. So now let's move on the 6 benefits of self-assessment. First is check understanding. Second is promote independence. Third is consolidate learning. Fourth is develop evaluate skills. Fifth is increase engagement. Sixth is deeper understanding. In First is checking understanding. There's a difference between acquiring knowledge and truly understanding something. Getting pupils to assess their own response to something gives an insight into their actual comprehension. In other words, it can show you what they know as opposed to what they think they know. You can then use these gaps to help pupils to make better process. It means students learn to rely on themselves. They become responsible in checking their own work before submitting it. For example, before submitting, si si Joshua daw, before niya pag-submit sa English essay, nag he uses a checklist to review grammar, punctuation, and content. He notices 3 sentences with wrong verb tenses and fixes them without waiting for the teacher. Third is consolidate learning. Get pupils to evaluate a previous response to something in the light of new information. This can help remove misconception and demonstrate new learning. So it means in self-assessment helps students review and connect everything they learn. This strengthens memory and understanding. For example, at the end of the lesson, the teacher asks the class to write a short reflection. So, Eliza writes, "Today I learned how to divide decimals and why it works." So, this helps her remember the steps more clearly. Fourth is develop evaluate skills. Encourage your pupils can decide that what makes something good or bad. Let them decide the success criteria for a particular piece of work. This is a higher order thinking skill which will help them make evaluate judgment. So it means students learn how to judge the quality of their own work using criteria or rubrics. For example, while checking her project using the rubrics, Kimberly realizes her poster is colorful and neat. but her explanation is too short. She adds more information to improve her score. Fifth is increase engagement. By giving pupils ownership of their learning, you're giving them the opportunity to become more engaged with their learning process. So it means students participate more actively because they are involved in evaluating their own performance and thinking about their progress. Example is kanang si Renz. Paghuman sa group activity daw, niingon siya, napil ko sa discussion, pero usahay sige kog tabi. Muna na kuan ni Renz. Pero next time niingon siya na pod nga magminaw ko og tarong. Munay tungod ani mas na-engage siya sa sunod nga activity kay gusto niya nga magtarong sunod para matarong ang ilang activity. Last is 6, deeper understanding. By actively engaging with what's good or bad about a particular response, pupils will have to think much deeper about the criteria used to assess them for that task. In doing so, this can help them to understand much better how to make progress in the specific area. It means reflecting on their own works helps students understand lessons more deeply, not just memorizing answer. For example, is after completing her experiment evaporation, Jessa writes why she thinks her results were different from her groups. By analyzing her own work, she develops a deeper understanding of that concept. So here are the advantages and disadvantages of self-assessment. First is the advantages of self-assessment. So advantages of self-assessment encourages students to critically reflect their own learning progress and performance. It means students think deeply about what they did and what they learned and how well they performed. Example is, after checking her science quiz, Maria says, I did well on identifying the planets, but I still get confused what their order. She reflects on what she needs to study more. Second is encourage students to be more responsible for their own learning. It means students take charge of their work and do not rely completely on the teacher. For example is, before submitting his homework, Joshua notices that one problem in his math assignment is wrong. He says, I will correct this first before I pass it, showing responsibility for his own learning. Third is help students develop their judgmental skills. It means students learn to judge the quality of their own work using standard or criteria. For example is using the rubric. Kimberly evaluates her poster and says, my design is good, but my explanation needs more details. This helps her improve the overall quality of her work. Fourth is there is no peer pressure when the students evaluate themselves. It means students can be honest about their performance because nobody else is evaluating them. For example, during a self-ratings activity. So, balik ko na to ang mga names. Shirens quietly writes, I did not participate much today. He feels uncomfortable being truthful because no classmates are judging him. And the fifth is help students become autonomous learners. It means students learn independently and make decisions about their own work. Example is, while writing her essay, Alyssa uses a checklist to check grammars, structures, and clarity. She makes improvement without waiting for the teacher's reminders. And last is help students be more aware of their weakness and strength. It means students can clearly see what they are good and what they need to improve. For example, after the group presentation, si Leo reflects nga, I explained the topic clearly but I need to work on speaking louder. He becomes aware of both his strengths and weaknesses. And now let's move to the disadvantages of self-assessment. First is self-assessment can be subjective because students may not be sincere and may even over-evaluate their own performance. It means students may give themselves scores that are too high or too low because they might not be honest, confident, or objective. Example is Hannah. Her name is Hannah. Hannah gives herself a very high score for her presentation even though she forgot some important points. She overevaluates herself because she wants to look better in her grade. Second is time consuming for students. It means reflecting on reviewing and comparing work with criteria takes more time than simply submitting the task. For example is Ethan. His name is Ethan. Ethan spends almost 20 minutes rereading his essay, correcting errors and matching his work with the rubric. Because of this, he finished later than his classmates. Third, student may not be familiar with the assessment criteria. Students do not fully understand the rubric or criteria, so their self-assessment becomes inaccurate or unreliable. For example, when asked to self-assess her drawing project, so her name is kanang Sophia. Sophia gets confused about the term creativity, alignment, and composition. So she gives random scores because she doesn't fully understand the criteria. And now, let's move on peer assessment. So peer assessment, so what I've said earlier, peer assessment is your friends or family or teacher are who evaluates to your performance or your activities. Peer assessment is an assessment which allows students to assess each other's performance. It can be extremely valuable in helping students to learn from each other by listening, analyzing, and problem solving. It gives students the opportunity to encounter diversity in different ways, critique and judge, and ultimately, students learn how to be responsible for their own learning. So peer assessment, what I said earlier is when the students evaluate each other's work using clear criteria. Instead of only the teacher giving feedback, your classmate also give comments, score, or suggestion to help you improve. It's like just helping each other see mistakes, strengths, and areas for improvement. The goal is not to judge, but to support each other's learning. Importance of peer assessment. Peer assessment is a good way for individuals to get familiar with constructive criticism. Many times we find it easier to deal with feedback and criticism when it comes from someone or people we are familiar with. There is certainly some degree of anxiety that comes with receiving feedback from higher authorities. So it means it also helps us practice giving feedback in a nice and helpful way. Dili lang para mo criticize pero para tabangan ang uban nga mo grow sa learning. Peer assessment, when classmates give feedback to each other's work, this is very important because it helps us to get used to constructive criticism. Many times masayon nato dawaton ang feedback kung gikan sa uban nato nga classmate or friends kaysa sa teacher or sa atong authority. Kung teacher ang mo comment usahay, di ba, ma-pressure ta or ma-nervous, pero kung sa classmate mas comfortable ta, mas klaro nato nga masabtan ang og makakatun ta sa unsaon pag-improve sa ato ang work. So ang giingon ako, ang peer assessment also kay makatabang natong tanan sa pag-practice sa paghatag og feedback in a nice and helpful way. Dili lang para mo criticize pero para matabangan ang uban nga mo grow sa learning. So, it makes learning less scary, more friendly, and more effective. Makatuon ta, makatabang sa uban, at makakaton pud ta ug unsaon paghandle sa mga comments gikan sa uban. And so now let's discuss some other reasons why peer assessment is important. First is due to the familiarity that exists between peers. They can provide meaningful insight into each other's behaviors, competence, and experiences. That means familiarity and between peers is often know each other's habits, strengths, and weaknesses better than a teacher might. Because of this, their assessments can be more personal and insightful. For example, as I noticed that my teammate is really good at research, but sometimes struggles with presenting. I can give feedback that helps them improve while appreciating their strength. So moreover in peer assessment is when students evaluate each other's work. It is important because peers can give meaningful feedback due to their familiarity with each other. It also improves that the evaluator skills, critical thinking, and creativity. Constructive peer assessment strengthens teamwork, is efficient for reviewing many people, and promotes deeper learning by exposing students to new ideas and perspective. And now, there are the types of peer assessment. First is student peer assessment. Second is employee peer assessment. Third is peer journal or article assessment. First is student peer assessment. Student peer assessment is a type of peer review that allows students to provide objective feedback on each other's performance in the classroom. With the teacher's guidance, it starts with the teacher providing different criteria for the evaluate, and then the students critique each other in line with the criteria. In a typical classroom setting, students' dissatisfaction with a teacher's grading style is not uncommon, and this is because they are quite removed from the evaluation process. However, when you get them involved via peer assessment, they become more open to evaluation and can see the justification for their grades. Peer assessment is more than a method of classroom evaluation. It is also a critical teaching method that helps students build lifelong skills. During peer evaluation, students learn how to be teachers, how to sift through information and identify valid data, and how to provide constructive feedback on performance. It means in students' peer assessment, classmates evaluate each other's work, behavior, or performance. This helps students develop critical thinking, communication skills, and self-awareness while learning from others' strengths and weaknesses. So, for example, of the students' peer assessment is Maria and Juan's are classmates working on a science project about renewable energy. Si Maria is carefully nag-observe kay Juan sa part of the project, noticing that he has done throughout research but struggles with presenting his ideas clearly. So, she gives him constructive feedback suggesting he practice speaking slowly and organize his slides better. So Juan in turn reviews so Maria's section and compliments her creativity while advising her to add more scientific reference. So through this process, both students improve their project and learn valuable skills in giving and receiving feedback. Second is employee assessment. Employee peer assessment is workplace review method where colleges with complementary roles assess each other's performances and provide feedback. It is a great way to build team spirit in the workplace while gathering objective information that can improve productivity. Employee peer assessment varies and it's best to come up with a method that works for your team and ensure that everyone gets familiar with the stipulated guidelines. Usually, employee peer assessment should be conducted anonymously, although some organizations do otherwise. So, employee peer assessment in the workplace, employees evaluate each other's performance to improve productivity, teamwork, and professional growth. Peer assessment can also foster accountability and motivate employees to maintain high standards. For example, of the employee peer assessment, I employee peer assessment is um, James and Anna are the team members in marketing department. So, si James reviews Anna's monthly report and notices that while her data analysis is excellent, her presentation slides are cluttered and hard to read. So, he gives her detailed feedback on how to simplify graphs and highlights the key points. Yeah. Later on, Anna provides feedback to James on his client proposal, suggesting more persuasive language and clearer visuals. This peer-to-peer evaluation helps to both improve their work and strengthens collaboration with the team. So there are the two types of employee assessment. First is pros and cons. First is pros of employee assessment. Second is cons of employee assessment. So pros of employees assessment. Employee peer assessment provide useful performance insight about the employee being reviewed. This performance insight result from the proximity in the relationship between the reviewer and the employee being reviewed. It allows you to monitor and improve employees' performance. This often has a positive outlook on your organization output and productivity. Employee peer assessment is an easy way to monitor organizational processes. It is important ingredients for team building in the workplace. Employee assessment is when colleges or supervisors evaluates an employer's performance, skills, and behavior in workplace. It helps improve productivity, teamwork, and professional growth. In pros, assessment focuses on the strengths and positive aspect of an employee's work. It highlights what the employee is doing well and encourages them to continue performing effectively. For example, Anna's manager observes that observes that she always submits her reports on time, maintains excellent communication with clients, and comes up with creative solutions for marketing campaigns. During a pros assessments, the manager emphasizes these strengths and praises Anna for her dedication and reliability. So this boosts her confidence and motivates her to keep performing at a high level. Second is the cons of employee assessment. Cons of employee assessment. Subjective feedback due to the familiarity that exists between the reviewer and the employee being assessed. The validity of the feedback can be affected by bias, especially when there is strained relationship between the reviewer and the employee. For example, James' supervisor notices that while he is very creative, he sometimes misses deadlines and his reports contain minor errors. During a assessment, the supervisor points out these issues and suggested time management strategies and careful proofreading. This helps James recognize areas he needs to improve while still feeling supported. So, cons assessments focus on the weaknesses or areas for improvement in an employee's performance. It helps identify challenges that tension and provide guidance for growth. Examples is James for supervisor notices that while he is very creative, he sometimes misses deadlines and his reports contain minor errors during a cons assessment. The supervisor points out these issues and suggests time management strategies, and careful proofreading. This helped James recognize areas he needs to improve while still feeling supported. And last is peer journal and or article assessment is a form of self-regulation adapted in many fields of study. Here an academic paper is vetted by scholars who have similar competencies as the author before it is eventually published to ensure that it meets the stipulated standards. Academic schools are the gatekeepers of knowledge in their fields, and the general public depends on the information they provide, especially through published works. Peer journal assessment certifies the validity of the data contained in these published works, and this prevents false information from being regarded as credible. Every field of study draws up a set of parameters that academic works must satisfy before they can be published. During a peer journals assessment, the reviewer weighs the academic work against these parameters and determines the extent to which it satisfies the publication requirements. Peer journal or article assessment means in academic or research settings, peers review each other's journals or articles. This ensures accuracy, clarity, and contribution to the field while allowing reviewers to learn new perspectives and approaches. For example, is Dr. Lee and Dr. Santos are researchers preparing papers for publication. So Dr. Lee reviews Dr. Santos' manuscript on climate change, pointing out unclear sections in the methodology and suggesting additionally reference to strengthen the argument. So Dr. Santos reviews Dr. Lee's article on renewable energy and provide feedback on data interpretation and citation formation. So both researchers benefit from constructive criticism in providing the quality of their work and deepening their understanding of the topic. So across all the three types, peer assessment encourages learning, improvement, and collaboration. Students gain better understanding and confidence. Employees enhance professional skills and teamwork. And researchers ensure high quality work while exchanging knowledge. So peer journal or article assessment is professional researchers or classmates review written work like articles, journals, or research papers. So it can also be divided into two, the pros and cons assessment. So the pros assessment focuses on strength like clarity or originality or strong arguments. In cons assessment focuses on weaknesses like unclear idea, lack of evidence, or formatting errors. So if in peer assessment helps individual to improve by receiving balanced feedback, recognizing strength while addressing weaknesses. It also promotes critical thinking and collaboration and personal growth. How to conduct peer assessment? First is create a well-defined peer assessment guideline that highlights your assessment criteria. This allows for the standardized assessment process. So it means this should clearly outline the criteria and standards that will be used to evaluate the work or performance. A guideline ensures everyone understands that what they are assessing and what they expected. It makes the process structured and fair, so all reviewers evaluate the same aspects. Without clear guidance, peer assessment can become inconsistent or biased. Everyone may focus on different things, which reduces the reliability of feedback. Example, imagine a class project where students are presenting science experiment. Guidelines could include clarity of explanation is 1 to 5 points, and then the creativity of experiment is 1 to 5 points, and teamwork and cooperation is 1 to 5 points also. So accuracy of results is 1 to 5 points also. Each students review their peers will follow the same criteria, making the feedback fair and comparable. Second is allocate enough time for the assessment and communicate this to all the parties involved. If you're using an online form for your peer assessment, you can share the form with the reviewer well ahead time. It means is if peer assessment should not well rush, everyone's involved needs enough time to review thoroughly. Also, it's important to inform participants in advance so they can prepare mentally and schedule their time. Rush assessment also often led to superficial feedback, while clear communication ensures participants understand deadlines and expectations. For example, is if the employees are reviewing each other's reports at work, send the online form a week before the deadline. Inform everyone. Please complete the peer assessment by next Friday. Take time to carefully read your colleague's report and provide detailed feedback. So this gives reviewers the chance to thoughtfully evaluate and provide meaningful suggestions. Third is for the best result, peer assessment must be done anonymously. Do not inform the employee of the persons who would be carrying out his or her assessment. It means anonymity ensures that feedback is honest and unbiased. If people know who is reviewing them, they may become defensive or reviewers may soften their feedback to avoid conflict. Anonymity protects both the reviewer and the persons being reviewed. It creates a safe space and constructive criticism. For example, is in a workplace, employees can submit feedback through an online platform where names are hidden. For instance, John may evaluate Maria's project without Maria knowing it was John. So John can give honest feedback like the project is well organized, but some sections need clearer explanation of data analysis. So Maria receives useful feedback without interpersonal tension. Fourth is ensure that all the parties involved get familiar with the assessment parameters. This keeps the process transparent and impartial. It means before starting, ensure everyone understands the criteria, rating scale, and expectation. This promotes transparency and fairness. Reviewers need to know exactly what to look for. In participants are unfamiliar with the process or criteria, they may give inconsistent or relevant feedback. So consistency ensures assessment are meaningful. For example, is for students peer assessment of essays. Teachers can provide a short training session or a writing guide. So we are assessing content accuracy, organization, grammar, and creativity. Use a 1 to 5 scale for each category. Focus on giving specific comments rather than just general praise. So this ensure all reviewers are aligned and the feedback is constructive. And last is peer assessment process should encourage honest feedback. If you're using a survey for the assessment, avoid bad survey questions like leading and loaded questions that can communicate huge biases in your review process. So it means the process should be promote honesty. Survey question or assessment prompts should be neutral, not leading or loaded. Leading question can introduce bias and affect the validity of feedback. Constructive criticism is more useful than only praise. Properly designed questions allow reviewers to provide truthful observation without personal opinions interfering. For example, is instead of asking, "Don't you think the project was excellent?" So, ask, "How effectively did the project explain the main topic?" Provide specific examples. This encourages reviewers to give details and unbiased feedback. For instance, a reviewer might say, "The introduction was clear, but the conclusion could summarize the main finding better." So for conducting peer assessment properly, ensures fairness, honesty, and usefulness of feedback. Following these steps avoids bias, promotes constructive criticism, and helps everyone grow, whether in classroom or workplace or a research setting. So there are also advantages and disadvantages of peer assessment. In the advantages of peer assessment is encourage students to critically reflect each other's work. Second is encourage students to be involved in assessment process. Third is help students develop their judgmental skill when they assess the work of other group members. Fourth is more feedback can be generated by students compared to one or two teachers. Fourth is reduce the time and workload of markings for teachers. Fifth is discourages the problem of free rider because students tend up to put extra effort to perform better in front of their peers. Seven is maintain the fairness of assessment because everyone has the chance to assess each other. 8 is students learn how to criticize, evaluate, and apply other generic skills during the process. And 9 is students learn more from each other's work. And disadvantages also is first disadvantage also of peer assessment is first is peer pressure and friendship can influence the reliability of grade given by students. Second, students may have a tendency to give everyone the same mark. For example, is there may be conclusion in return for good grades. Third is students are not experienced in assessing each other. Fourth is students may cheat in collaboration for group assignments. Last is fairness may not be maintained because extroverted students can be marked higher, quieter student got marked down. In advantages of peer assessment, first is encourage students to critically reflect each other's work. When students assess peers' work, they need to think carefully about what is good or needs improvement. This reflection also improves their own understanding. Example is Maria reviews Juan's essay and notices he didn't explain one point clearly. She reflects on how she can avoid the same mistake in her own essay. Second is encourages students to be involved in the assessment process. It means students take an active role in evaluating instead of just being passive learners. This promotes engagement and responsibility. For example, is in a group project. All of members grade each other's contribution, ensuring everyone participates in the evaluation. The third is help students develop their judgmental skills when they assess the work of others group members. Assessing others helps students practice making fair, informed decision about quality and effort. Examples: Liam judges the clarity and structure of his peers' presentation, learning to identify strong points and areas for improvement. Fourth is more feedback can be generated by students compared to one or two teachers. Teachers may not have time to give detailed feedback to every student, but peer assessment allows multiple perspectives and comments. For example, in class of 20, each student receives suggestions from 5 peers, gives a wide range of ideas that just the teachers give feedback. His fifth is reduces the time and workload of marking for teacher. It means teachers save time because students help evaluate each other work. This is especially helpful for large classes. Example is instead of grading 30 essays alone, the teacher allows students to provide initial feedback and the teacher only reviews final grades. 6 is discourage the problem of free rider because students tend to put extra effort to perform better in front of their peers. So, knowing peers will evaluate them motivates students to contribute fairly and fully to group work. Example is John participates actively in his group project because he knows his peers will grade his effort. And 7 is maintain the fairness of assessment because everyone has the chance to assess each other. So everyone evaluates and is evaluated, created a balanced and transparent process. Example is in a debate. All students score each other on argument, ensuring no one is unfairly judged by just one teacher. 8 is students learn how to criticize, evaluate, and apply other generic skills during the process. So, peer assessment develop skills like giving constructive criticism, decision making, and analytical thinking. Another example is Emma learns to politely point out grammar mistake in her peers' report while suggesting improvements. So last is students learn more from each other's work. By reading and evaluating peer work, students are exposed to different ideas, methods, and solutions. So another example also is while reviewing a peer science project, Carlos learns a new experiment techniques that he can use in his own work. So in the disadvantages of peer assessment, first is peer pressure and friendship can influence the reliability of grades given by students. So students may feel pressure to give friends higher marks or avoid giving low marks, which can make the assessment less accurate. For example, is Anna gives her best friend Max a high score on a project, even though his work wasn't very detailed, because she doesn't want to upset him. Second, a student may have a tendency to give everyone the same mark. For example, there may be conclusion in return for good grades. So, some students might have give uniform marks to avoid conflict or in hopes of receiving the same treatment from peers. In a group assignment, in a group assignments, all members give each other 10 over 10 even if someone contribute were less than others, expecting everyone to do the same. Third is students are not experienced in assessing each other. So, many times, lack of the skills or knowledge to evaluate work accurately, which can reduce the quality of feedback. Example is Liam struggles to grade peers' essay because he doesn't know the proper criteria for evaluating arguments. And lastly is fairness. I joke. Fourth is student may cheat in collaboration for group assessment. Some students may work together to give each other higher mark unfairly rather than grading honestly. Examples in a project. A few friends agree to give each other perfect scores to increase their overall grades. Last is fairness may not be maintained because extrovert students can usually be marked higher and quieter students get marked down. So, outgoing or confident students may appear or competent and get higher marks, while quieter students might be unfairly scored lower. An example is during a presentation, Sarah gets a higher marks because she speaks loudly and confidently, even though Tom's quieter presentation had better content. So the advantages of peer assessment are it helps students think critically, learn from each other, and get more feedback than just from the teacher. It encourages active participation, responsibility, and fairness, and it helps students develop important skills like evaluating, criticizing constructively, and working in groups. For example, students reviewing a peer's project can learn new ideas and improve their work. And the disadvantages of peer assessments are that it can sometimes be influenced by friendship or peer pressure, and students may lack experience in assessing others accurately. Some may give everyone the same marks or collaborate unfairly to get higher grades. Also, extrovert students might be rated higher than quieter students, even if the work quality is the same. For instance, a confident presenter may get better marks than shy student with better content. So, in short, the peer assessment is useful for learning and teamwork, but it needs clear rules and guidance, and it make fair and effective. So last, before ta mahuman, nakoy isa ka question. Nakasabot ra ba ang tanan? Yes or no? So yes, nakoy pangutana. Unsa ra gani ang kalahian sa peer ug self-assessment? Manudlo ko kanang Miss Palingkod. Unsa ra gani ang peer assessment? Isa-isaw na to ha. Peer assessment sa una. Correct. So peer assessment is kanang ang imong kanang classmate or teacher or imong family ang mo evaluate sa imong work while ang self assessment unsa man Miss Ella, unsa man ang self assessment? Yes, correct. Self assessment is kanang ikaw mismo ang mo-evaluate sa imong kagalingon ug ansaon pag-improve ani nga mga performance or activities. So, thank you.